Welcome to Train Signal. You're watching setting up remote desktop on your personal Vista client. Basically because you don't want to have to go into the server room every time you need to do something on that server, right? So in this video, we're going to start off by talking about, well, the DCs are up and running. So what do we do now? And why remote desktop is just great. Yeah, just great. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's jump right in here. Our machines are going, the two servers are up, but we want to set up our Vista client so we can access these servers remotely. Now, you have a Vista machine that you'll be using for everyday tasks like Globomantics, but you can use the remote desktop to administer servers without having to be right at those machines. Remember what we did earlier in the last video? Remember how we set this guy up, allow connections only from computers running remote desktop with network level authentication more secure? Well, that did enable the remote desktop. However, because we selected this option, the caveat is that the machine that we access remote desktop with, we access the DCs with, has to be joined to the domain, and we also have to be logged in to the domain with domain level credentials. Otherwise, if that doesn't happen, we won't be able to access DC1 or DC2. So that being the case, first, what we need to do with our client machine, our Vista machine we're going to be using day to day, is we need to rename it because we don't want it to start off with the name that it comes with via the installation. So we're going to rename our Vista client to fit the Globomantics naming convention. So we're going to name it to be CL1-NY-Viz. Then we'll go ahead and we'll reboot that guy. Then we'll join the client to the Globomantics domain. It's a really short process. It's really fast. We'll have to reboot again, though. It's all about rebooting a lot of times when we're doing this stuff, right? So, tell you what, let's go ahead and let's move on over to the Vista machine, and let's make this happen real quick. All right, so here we are over at this Vista machine. It has been installed, and I'm not going to show you the Vista installation because, seriously, it's such a piece of cake. You pop in a CD and you click Next. I mean, it's really that easy. Now, I'm going to be logging in as the initial user that's created with the Vista installation. That's going to give me all the rights that I need to actually join this domain or join this computer to the domain. So we boot up here as we're logged in as really more or less the local administrator. And let me go ahead and turn off this sidebar here. It just kind of annoys me, just, on principle. So now what we're going to do is we're going to rename the machine. It's real easy. We go to the Start menu. We go to Computer, right-click it, and then we go to its properties. Now in here we get all the basic core information that we need about this particular machine. We're going to go here to Computer Name, Domain, and Workgroup Settings. You notice right now it's called Coach-PC, and that doesn't fit in with our Globomantics naming scheme. Now some of you are thinking, well, why do I care what the machine is named? To make your life easier when you're doing inventory and when you're accessing the machines, you're going to want to have a standard, what we might call a nomenclature, or it's a big fancy word that means naming scheme. And we want to go ahead and make sure that all of our machines have a standardized name just to make our lives easier so it's really easy to refer to. All right, so we're going to go ahead and tell user account control here, yes, we want to continue this action. And now we're going to go here to rename this computer or change its domain or work group. Click Change. Okay, we're going to change it. Now we need to rename it first before we add it to the domain. So we're going to name our machine just like what we said, CL1-NY-Viz for Vista. And we're going to leave it at the workgroup setting for right now. We're going to come back and we're going to change it to the Globomantics domain here as soon as the machine reboots. So we'll tell it OK. And now it's telling me that I have to restart the machine to apply blah, blah, blah. Okay, got it. We'll tell it OK. We're going to close this box. We're going to restart now. Okay, that's really all there is to renaming a machine. So it's going to shut down and reboot. And then as soon as it does, I'll be right back and start recording again. Okay, so the machine has rebooted, as you see here. And currently it's trying to connect to a network. Right now it's identifying it as network 2. We're going to go ahead and tell this work. Now our machine is actually pulling an IP address from the DHCP server on the router. Remember how we were talking about that a little while back? And that should be okay, but we're going to find out here in just a moment whether that's going to be okay or not. Let's go ahead and tell it to continue. Okay, now it looks like we do have a network name. Network 2 is what it's calling it now. It's a private network. We're going to tell it to close. We're going to close out of this welcome center here real quick, and then of course I want to close the sidebar again. And now we're going to see about joining this guy to the domain. So I go to the start menu, right click on computer, and to the properties. Now it looks like our name change did happen a-okay, CL1NY-Viz. So that's good news. We're still in the workgroup settings here. Let's go to change settings again, and let's take a look and see about actually joining this to the domain. Now I'm going to go ahead and click here on the change button once again, and now we're going to try to connect to our Globomantics domain. So I'll put in globomantics.com and tell it OK. Well, this is not good. The Active Directory domain controller could not be contacted. Ensure that the name is typed correctly. All right, well, I know that that's done right. I'm going to go ahead and just tell this OK for right now because I have a guess about what the problem might be. I'm going to cancel out of this here for just a second, close this all out. Let's go to the network settings here. Let's take a look and see what the DNS entry is. I'm going to go to the Start menu and go to CMD. Remember how we were talking about DNS is really the phone book, and if a computer can't find a machine or knows where it is, it goes and asks DNS. So let's see what our DNS settings are first. I'm going to type ipconfig /all. Okay, so I'm going to scroll up here just a little bit and let's see what we got. Alright, so you see here that our default gateway is our router 192.168.5.1. The DHCP server is also 192.168.5.1, but the DNS server, on the other hand, is 192.168.1.1. Well, that's not right. Our machine is trying to look for the Globomantics domain controller on a DNS that on our network doesn't exist, and that's not good. So let's go ahead and let's exit out of this, and let's change the DNS settings in our network settings. So we're going to go back here to the Start menu and to Network, and we're going to go to the Network and Sharing Center here, and then Manage Network Connections. And here's our local area connection. Let's right click and let's just jump to its properties here. Oh look, the user account control is popping up again. Okay, yes, we want to continue this action, tell it continue. Alright, well, right off the bat here, let's go ahead and turn off IP version 6 because remember, we're not working in an IP version 6 network. And now let's go into the IP version 4 properties by double clicking. Now we know that the DHCP server is currently giving us bad DNS information, and so until we can make that change in the DHCP, we're going to go ahead and make sure that this client is looking to DC1 for correct information about where to find stuff. So we're going to go ahead and put in here 192.168.5.2, and remember that is our IP address of DC1. Now remember that DC2 is also a DHCP server, so we can go ahead and put that one in here for the alternate as well, 192.168.5.3. So we should be in pretty good shape with that. Let's go ahead and tell this OK, and we'll tell our local area connection properties OK, and now we'll go ahead and we'll close out of the network windows here and the sharing center, and it's going to go ahead and talk to the DNS machines and make sure it can find them A-OK. Oh, there we go. One thing to watch is this little guy down here in the corner. You notice how it's got the little globe, and it tells us that we do have both local and internet access. Good thing to remember when you're looking at setting up clients for your network. Alright, I'm going to close out of this network box too, and we'll come back here to our system and maintenance section. Let's go ahead and let's try this again now. Let's go to change settings. And once again, user account control pops up, tell it to continue. And now we're going to actually join this guy to the domain. At least we're going to try again. Let's see how we do. Globomantics.com. Pressing the enter key. Hey, that's something new. It's asking us for network credentials. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to put in the SuperCoach credential here and see if that doesn't get us access to join the domain. One quick note about this is that the credentials that you're adding here need to have permission to join computers to the domain. Now, the SuperCoach account we know is the domain administrator, so obviously that's going to have access and permissions to actually make this client machine part of the Globomantics domain. I'm going to tell this OK, And we're going to wait here for just a second. Let's see how we do. It might take just a little bit for this machine to go back to the DC and talk. Uh-oh, looks like we have an RPC server is unavailable error. Well, you know what? I'm going to tell you a little secret. You're going to think this is kind of funny. But the solution to this problem is literally to reboot the machine. It's a Microsoft thing. So let's go ahead and cancel out of this stuff. And I'm letting a lot of these errors pop up because I want you to know what you might need to do in case these things do happen. They're not uncommon. So I'm going to go ahead and just restart this machine. Nothing special. And then as soon as this machine comes back, then we'll try again. Okay, so one more time, the machine has rebooted. Let's go ahead and let's just close out of that welcome window here. Go back to the start menu. We're going to go back to computer and right click and back to the properties again. All right, so you see that we still do not have a domain yet. We're still in the work group. Let's go to change settings here. And we're going to go ahead and click on continue and tell it yes, of course we want to continue with this action. And we'll click once again on the change button. And well, we've been here before, right? Go ahead and we're going to try to make this guy a member of the globalmantics.com domain one more time, and we'll tell it okay. Hey, there we go. Okay, well, we do have the box again. That's good. We'll log in here with SuperCoach. We'll go ahead, we'll put in the SuperCoach password and tell it okay. And we'll wait just a little bit here while that little circle spins. And if everything was set up correctly and everything is playing nice together, we should receive a welcome to the globalmantics.com domain message here in just a moment. Hey, there we go. All right, so that worked A-OK. So let's go ahead and let's tell this okay. And once again, yeah, I know. We have to restart again, right? So let's go ahead and tell it okay. And we'll click on close, and we'll go ahead and hit restart now. We'll restart the machine again, and as soon as it comes back up, I'll show you what the login screen should look like if you've joined the machine correctly to the domain. All right, so the machine has now rebooted. Let's go ahead and let's do a Control-Alt-Delete to log in here. Now you see initially, it's trying to make me log into the machine locally. That's not what I want to do. So I need to click here on Switch User and now click on Other User. And look, it's telling me that I now can log on to Globalmantics. Hey, that's a beautiful thing. So let's go ahead and let's log in as SuperCoach again here. And we'll put in the SuperCoach password and we'll go ahead and we'll log in. And let's see if everything works A-OK. All right, we're at the preparing your desktop section. So it's looking really good for our login process. While this thing is booting back up, I'm going to go ahead and bounce back on over to the slides because I want to talk with you a little bit about what we're about to do next. All right, so back over here to the slides. And again, we're going to talk about why remote desktop is just great. Right? So really, why get out of your chair when you can just do server stuff right from your desk? Once we have remote desktop set up, you can access your servers just like you're at the machine. You're going to like this a lot because you can administer your entire network from one central location. And so what we're going to be doing is we're going to be setting up remote desktop and specifically remote desktop shortcuts so we don't have to put in the machine information every single time. Now we will probably have to put in credentials, but I'm going to show you a shortcut to that as well. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be creating 2 remote desktop shortcuts, and we're going to save those to the desktop because I want you to be able to get to DC1 and DC2 real easily. So let's go ahead and let's move back on over to our Vista client machine, and I want to show you how to set these guys up. All right, so back here on the Vista machine one more time, I'm going to go ahead and close out the gadgets. Tell you what, I'm going to go here to the properties. I'm just going to make sure that this is unchecked because the sidebar is annoying to me. You might really like it, and if you do, good fortune to you. But I'm going to go ahead and turn that off because every time I log back into this thing, it keeps turning back on. So I want to go ahead and make sure that sidebar is turned off. All right, so next, what we're going to do is we're going to be setting up our remote desktop shortcut. So I'm going to go to the Start menu, and just to find it real easy, I'm just going to type in here in the search box remote, and there he is, shows up right up top here. And let's go ahead and click on it. All right, so here's our remote desktop connection box. I'm going to turn on the options here because we want to be able to save and see all of the other various features that we may or may not want to turn on. So first of all, we're going to go here to the computer box. We're going to tell it what computer we want to actually connect to. So we're going to be connecting to NYDC1-2K8. We need to put in the fully qualified domain name. Now, that's a real fancy word that means we're going to put in the name of the machine and then follow it with a dot and then the full domain name. So our fully qualified domain name, quote unquote, is nydc1-2k8.globalmatics.com. I know, not real crazy, not real complicated. You just take the name of the machine, the name of the domain, squish them together, you're done. Make sure you separate them with a period. All right, now let's go ahead and put in our username. And we also want to be able to save credentials. I want to be able to just double click on the shortcut on the desktop and jump straight to the machine. Now, that's not the most secure thing to do, I should probably mention to you. If you step away from your machine and you're still logged on and you don't log off or lock the machine, that means anybody can walk up to the machine, double click on one of your remote desktops, and jump straight to the server. Right? So, depending upon your security policy and your security needs, this may or may not be a good idea. I just wanted to mention that. All right, so now let's go into the display, and we want to set the display to be full screen. Now we could have it run less if we want to too, but I'm going to go ahead and have it run full screen. Highest quality. You can also decide the quality that you'd like for it to run as well. This display connection bar option, I really like this because this tells me which machine I'm on all the time. So we're going to go ahead and leave that guy checkmarked because if we have multiple machines and they have the exact same desktop, that connection bar will tell us which machine we're actually connected to. Now let's take a look here at local resources. I like this. This is way cool stuff. Remote computer sound. When our remote machine is making a beep or playing songs or something, we want to make sure that it actually plays on this machine. Keyboard, do we want to allow keyboard combinations? Yes, we do. And here, this is probably my favorite section, local devices and resources. This is way cool because this little clipboard option is going to allow you to copy and paste documents directly from your local machine over to the server. This is way cool. I love this thing. You probably want to keep that check marked. Also, on the printer section, you'll probably want to keep this guy checkmarked so you can print directly to your local printers you have set up on your local machine. It's a beautiful thing. Let's click on the More button here, and we can also apply smart cards for serial ports, drives, if we have local drives we want to be able to connect to, and plug-and-play devices. So, a lot of fun things that we can use here in Remote Desktop that you wouldn't normally think that we could. So let's take a look here at Programs. You can also start specific programs on the remote server as soon as you log in. Also, the experience, if you are connecting over a slow connection, we can alter that as well. Now, we are going to be connecting over the local area network, so we can go ahead and set that guy to LAN, and we can allow all of these, basically show, it's kind of the pretties of Windows. We can go ahead and leave those turned on. If you are connecting over a slow connection, though, let's say you're connecting over, heaven forbid, an ISDN line or a dial-up, as you see here. If we're connecting over a dial-up modem, we're going to want to turn this stuff off. Okay? This stuff is just pretties that we see on the machine that doesn't actually affect the real functionality. But since we're connecting over a network, it's just fine to leave on. Now, in the Advanced tab here, server authentication, basically this just verifies that we're connecting to the right machine. All right, so nothing really special here other than we have the ability to simply warn. Do not connect if we're not necessarily getting that verification, or we can connect to don't warn me. I'm going to go ahead and set it to warn me. I don't want it to not connect. All right. And now, do we also want to connect from anywhere if we have Terminal Services Gateway? Now, we haven't even touched on Terminal Services Gateway, so let's leave that guy alone until a whole different video series. Okay, so now let's go back to the General tab. Now, we're going to save this remote desktop connection to the desktop. So I'm going to click on Save As, and now I'm going to name this guy DC1. And I'm going to be saving this not to My Documents folder, but to my desktop. So that way I can just double click on it from my desktop and jump straight to it. I'm going to click here on Save, and there he is. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and close out of this remote desktop connection window, and I'm going to test out this shortcut that I just created. So I'm going to double click here on it, and remember that little server verification warning that we said? That's what we're seeing here. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and tell it to connect anyway. And now I'm going to go ahead and log in here as SuperCoach. You know what? I'm going to go ahead and put a check mark here in Remember My Credentials. So that way I don't have to put in my password every time I double click on this thing. Again, remember, that's maybe not the most secure thing to do, especially if your workstation is out in an open area. So depending upon your company's security requirements, you may need to leave that turned off. So we're going to go ahead and see if we can't connect over here to the server. And hey, there we go. So we connected A-OK. You'll see up top here our NYDC1-2K8globomantics.com connection bar, and we can also minimize, we can restore it, or we can really resize it to a separate window. And we don't have to have it here. We can actually set it to auto hide if we like, so that when we let go of the mouse it kind of jumps back up. But I like to know what machines I'm on, so I like to have it pinned. So I'm going to go ahead and leave that turned on. And now I'm hanging out over here on DC1. That's really all there is to it. So I'm going to go ahead and close out of this remote desktop session. It's going to tell me that this will disconnect my terminal session. The programs that I start, though, are going to continue to run. So kind of keep that in mind as you are logging off, because your machine still keeps going even though you're not there. We'll tell it OK. Let's make one more shortcut really quick for DC2 now. So, oh, here it is, remote desktop connection. Let's go ahead and turn this one on. Let's turn on the options here, and let's go ahead and connect over here and see how we do. So we'll put in NY-DC2-Globomantic. Oops, that's not quite right, is it? So we need to put in our 2K8.globomantics.com, and then of course our username is again SuperCoach. Make sure we can save credentials, and let's go ahead and let's take a quick look here. Display is A-OK, local resources is A-OK, programs we're not going to do much with. Experience, we're going to set that to LAN. We want all of the options here, so it'll be just like we're working at the desktop. And the advanced sections, we're going to leave that set to Warn Me. And we'll take us back over here to the General tab. Let's go ahead and let's save this connection out to our desktop one more time. And we'll also give it a quick whirl here. So we'll do DC2, save it to the desktop, click on Save, and there he is. I'm going to go ahead and close this window now. Let's try out our DC2 option here. Once again, it's kind of giving us a cussing because it can't necessarily authenticate or verify the machine that we're connecting to. We do want to go ahead and connect because we want these machines to talk to each other. We want them to get to know each other. So we'll go ahead and we'll put in here our SuperCoach password and remember the credentials. And we'll see if we can connect. Hey, there we go. So we connected A-OK to DC2 as well here. And looks like the results of our repadmin sync all message is still up over here. Let's go ahead and close that. And here we are over at DC2. So our remote connections are now intact. Everything is A-OK. So we can actually start doing work on our Active Directory from our Vista client machine. We don't have to be at the server now. All right, I'm going to go ahead and close out of this remote desktop connection. Tell it OK, and we're all set. So let's go ahead and let's move back to the slides. Let's do a quick wrap up, and then we'll move on to the next video. All right, so just a quick look in terms of what our network looks like now. As part of globomantics.com domain, we have our two domain controllers here that we set up in our last video, and we also now have CLNY.viz as part of our domain as well. So we're starting to build our Active Directory network really one piece at a time, and we definitely have a good start because now we can have this machine we can actually sit at it and use it to administrate our two domain controllers. All right, so let's do a quick wrap up here. After viewing this video, you should be able to join a Vista client to a domain. You should be able to alter some DNS settings to ensure connectivity. Now, that was really kind of a troubleshooting lesson, one of those things that kind of sneaks up and grabs you every once in a while. I wanted to make sure you knew how to handle that. I also wanted to make sure you knew how to handle that RPC server unavailable error when you're trying to join that machine to a domain. Hopefully that won't happen to you whenever you're doing standard setups. But I left that error in this video just in case that does happen to you, because you saw how easy it was to fix, right? We just rebooted the machine. I also showed you how to create some remote desktop shortcuts, so that way we can very easily log in to a server using remote desktop. I also showed you how to go in and make setting alterations in there just in case you're using slow connection. We didn't talk a lot about it, but you know those tools are there. So that's what you should be able to do now, and if you can't perform any of those tasks or you don't quite remember how to do one, go ahead and go back to that section in the video. Hey, you know what? Right now, at this point, we're actually able to remotely access our servers. So you know what? In the next video, we're going to start populating, quote unquote, it's kind of a fancy word that I'm going to tell you about, our Active Directory database. We're going to start building organizational units. We're going to add in users and computers, and we're going to talk about groups. We're going to talk about the difference between organizational units and groups, and a lot of other stuff. So I will see you in that next video.